So one person I know that we really wanted to educate the public about right now, Sagal Sadiq. And Sagal is currently a prisoner in a California women's prison. And can you tell us a little bit about Sagal and what's going on right now?
Earlier this year, Sagal witnessed 2 incidents of sexual harassment being perpetrated by a trans-identified male who had been transferred under SB 132 against one woman, and reported it. Not only reported it, but insisted on documenting it and standing up against it, saying it wasn't right. Sagal didn't come out against SB 132 on principle early on. It was after, it was in this narrow circumstance of saying, this is not right for this person to be acting like this. If it was any other situation, you wouldn't stand for it. And coming forward, and at that time, and one of our plaintiffs, Tamikia, was also a witness to part of this incident. And so the 3 of them, Sagal, Tamikia, and then the victim of the sexual harassment, who were ended up placed in protective custody briefly for 2 of them, but Sagal went on a hunger strike earlier this year as a result of that, to be put back on the honor dorm. So Tamikia and the other woman were put on a different yard, but Sagal was placed back after that hunger strike. And so this is hunger strike part 2.
Sagal was a resident of the honor dorm, a model inmate, someone who's gone without a write-up for many years, which is technically a requirement in order to live in the honor dorm. Sagal hasn't eaten in 30 days now. Sagal has had no urine output for 3 days now. And this is because Sagal was given a retaliatory write-up for speaking out in the 602 process against the implementation of SB 132. So because of this retaliatory write-up, which Sagal was found guilty of, that's where the hunger strike came from. And this is unheard of in the women's facilities. This is not something that happens on a regular basis. This is not men's prison. Sagal's diabetic. From what I understand from reports say that Sagal was in the skilled nursing facility for a couple of days, and the doctor said, just, I'm going to release you back to administrative segregation. And the message I got was, please help me. And the helplessness that I have is overwhelming sometimes, because this person is willing to take this to the grave, because that's how important this is, to make sure that the rest of the population inside isn't discouraged from standing up for themselves. So Sagal just signed a will this week, and there's very little we can do. The requirements that Sagal gave the prison was, put me back in the honor dorm. Put me back in the honor dorm, because there's exceptions are made regularly. I can be one of those exceptions. The write-up I received was retaliatory, and it was intentional so that I couldn't go back to the honor dorm. So put me back in the honor dorm. So earlier this week, that specific honor dorm had 16 rooms full of people displaced and moved off of the yard. And they moved a unit from receiving people who haven't even processed or seen their counselor, or, they're still in oranges, state issue oranges, which separates people who have processed and come out of receiving. That it's ridiculous. They put them in those empty rooms, and then they combined the remaining honor dorm residents who fit the criteria into two hallways, COVID and not COVID. smashed them all or combined them all into the existing availability, all because that was what Sagal's requirements were. I want to go back to the honor dorm. So instead of putting Sagal back in the honor dorm, they basically made it a not honor dorm. Remember, they were put in administrative segregation because someone dropped an anonymous note saying that they were in danger. So this is just a cycle of abuse and psychological warfare that we are just not equipped to defend ourselves against, because it's
Exactly. And Sagal spoke up and shared this experience with us, did a declaration for us in our opposition to the motion to dismiss. And after, just weeks after we filed that brief with that declaration attached, that's when the three of them got these rules violation reports, calling it, saying that they made false allegations. And that is unprecedented. We have spoken with experts, we've spoken with staff members and former leadership at CDCR who have said they've never heard of such a thing. We've spoken with a very trans-friendly attorney who works in prison issues who said she's never heard of such a thing. She feels it's clearly retaliatory based on the timing, that there's no other real explanation for it. And so I just really want to note that Sagal is a biological female, but identifies as a transgender man, and feels a responsibility to the women in that facility to, in a kinship and take care of them. And I just wanted to.
We have to really point out that Sagal doesn't have any support from the other side, because
oh yeah,
Sagal's
a traitor,
a woman, essentially. So what this means is there is no backup, there's no assistance, because these gender self-ID policies are not created for their entire community. It's for very, very specifically, very specific. It's very, very specific who this is aimed at and who this is geared towards. And it does not include people like Sagal.
No, in fact,
I think,
oh, go ahead, Mahri.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so in some ways, this sounds like a complicated situation, and in other ways, it's actually, listening to it, very straightforward, in that we have Sagal, who is a female prisoner, but who identifies as a man, right, as a transgender man. Sagal witnessed a male sexually harassing a female, and Sagal was brave enough to come forward and file a report about witnessing the sexual harassment. And now Sagal, it appears, is being retaliated against. And, Amie, as you just said, we have, these proposed interveners in our case who claim that they represent the transgender community, as a whole and all that. But here we have an inmate who is a trans identified female who's being punished, essentially, right, for speaking out in defense of a woman. And so it's complicated on the one hand, and on the other hand, I think it's really simple and straightforward, that this is a situation of a female prisoner who is being treated very, very, very badly in the system.
I just wanted people to hear some of Sagal's own words, and this was in the declaration submitted on it was May 31st for this case, where Sagal said, "It is my belief that all of this is happening because the patriarchy protects itself. If a man wants to be a woman, then he is entitled to be whatever he wants to be because he is a man and the patriarchy will protect him. But a trans man is a biological woman, and therefore the patriarchy wants to keep them exactly where they belong, in a marginalized category. The patriarchy is protecting itself, and it's working out super well for them, and it's horrifying. This absolutely cannot continue." So this was prior to all of this. After coming forward and having this, making this statement and standing up, to have this come and happen it's just disgusting.